This is Sean Crystal. Catch the INKPULP Podcast on Pharcyde TV Wednesdays at noon Pacific Time, 3 o'clock Eastern Time. Come hang. Peace. This is the INKPULP Podcast. That's from last week. Dude, your mic.
What's going on, man? It's great.
Your mic is way loud.
Is it way loud? I'm going to turn it down like this.
Yeah.
There. Here we go. Testing 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
There it is. That's called a professional broadcast mic, buddy. Also,
yeah, I know.
I didn't get a chance to tell you, but I also have one that's hanging over my head here. Listen to this. I know we're just screwing around in the beginning part of this podcast, but
yeah, go ahead.
Listen to that. Can you hear that? Okay.
Yeah.
That's my boom microphone. That's right above my head. So if I wanted to draw unencumbered with a camera directly, looking over my shoulder as I draw, it doesn't have this soft phallic black thing in my face. I don't like the way it. Here we go.
So that's probably how I sound. That other mic is probably the way I sound.
I think you sound a little bit better. All things considered, those
you sound like you're right up on it. I mean, you are right up on it.
I am right up on it.
I'm going to podcast like this from now on.
What's news, man? Hey, didn't I plan on sending you some? I said a camera. That's right. If you took off those stupid glasses, I'd send you a camera.
Here I am, sans glasses.
I know it. I'm making
I'm going to give
notes.
you one more podcast, and then they're coming back.
What's news? How was your time away? I know you were up at the Great White North doing a convention and shooting a few more episodes for INKPULP Instructional.
Yes. So it was awesome. It was...
Let's talk about that for a minute.
Okay. You want to know about my hell day? One of the most challenging days of my recent years.
Tell me.
It was.
Is it podcast? Excuse me. Is it in INKPULP Instructions related?
No.
Oh,
it's related to my trip to Toronto.
Oh, let's do it. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. It's the night before, and I'm like, with all this COVID shit going on, Canada has all these hoops you got to jump through.
Sure.
And it was just taking pictures of your vaccine card and your passport and your test. I mean, I took one of those little home tests, and so I all the pictures are taken. I upload all the documents. Everything's cool. It keeps telling me it can't read my photo of the test.
Oh, so interesting.
All right, I'll just deal with this at the airport.
Okay.
I get to the airport the next morning, a good bit early, and I go up and I explain hey, everything uploaded fine. I just can't get this test. He goes, let me see. And he looks at it, he goes, we don't take that. I was like, what do you
you're
mean?
talking about the home test that you took.
Yeah. I was like, well, what do you? It's a test. What do you mean you don't take it? It was sent to me by the government. If this test isn't acceptable, what's the fucking point of this test?
Yeah, exactly.
If the results are unreliable enough for you, then why are we getting it? Right. Anyways, so I'm freaking out now because I'm like, oh shit. I'm thinking, all right, well, there's probably some place in the airport to get a test.
Yeah, right.
No. 3 miles away. Oh, I had to run downstairs with all my luggage, get a cab. The cabbie saw me coming, must deal with this all the time. Just looked at me, was like, "You need a test?" I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Oh, well, I'll take you and I'll wait for you." I was like, "Oh, okay, great.
That's awesome.
Thank God."
Awesome. Yeah.
So takes me, get the test. It's in. I mean, it looks like what Ukraine looks like now. This abandoned parking lot with a. That was once a restaurant building in the parking lot that is so overgrown and gone. It was like an apocalyptic scene. And there's this little tent set up with a lady who gives tests. That's the reliable test.
That's the reliable one.
That's the one they're okay with.
There's not the one I took. There's not one. Yeah, not the one that you got from the comfort of your own home. Not one that's set up within the airport itself. Which, by the way, at one point they were set up in the airports, weren't they?
Yeah, I thought so. I mean, I never had to do it, so I don't know, but I thought so.
Yeah.
So I get my test. It's 3 miles there. The test takes. I do it in like 5 minutes, and as I'm driving back, the results are getting texted to me. I'm fine.
Of course. Yeah.
And so I get back and I'm like, the cabbie pulls up. I'm like, thank you. He goes, $60.
Yeah.
I was like, excuse me? He goes, $60.
Did he keep the meter running while you were?
No. He didn't even turn on the fucking meter, and I noticed that on the ride out there. I was like, this motherfucker. I was like, you're taking advantage of me in a really awful situation, and he was just being like playing so innocent. And he goes, okay, $50. And I was like, fuck you.
Yeah. He was bargaining with you.
Yeah, like, I thought it was 60, now it's 50. But at this point, I'm getting panicky because it's getting close to me needing to get through customs and security and all that shit.
Sure.
So I'm like, I just hand him a 50 and just leave.
Yeah, okay.
And I get up, I get in line, I get back up to the counter. It's the same guy. He's like, oh, you made it. I'm like, yeah, thank God.
Yeah.
And I have my little my phone with my Delta app on it. And I show him my reservation thing because I couldn't get a boarding pass because I didn't have the documentation.
Yeah.
So he starts typing and he goes, "You don't have a ticket."
Oh, you're kidding.
I was like, "What do you mean? This is right here. It says there's my confirmation number. There's my ticket number.
Yeah.
You don't have a ticket. What am I looking at? That's a reservation. Okay, how do you get a reservation without buying a ticket? Well, you can't.
Right.
Well, he says you can't. I'm like, well, then how do I have that? He's like, I don't know he's like, I don't know. So at this point, I'm calling Jason. I'm like, Jay, I don't know what to do. They're telling me I don't have a ticket. And they're like, a ticket, you could buy a ticket right now for $800. And we'll get you to Toronto. And then they said, but you do have a ticket home from Toronto.
That doesn't make any sense. Why would you buy a one-way ticket in and out of out of a country?
Oh, it gets worse. It gets worse, Eric. It thickens.
Oh.
So I've got Jason on the phone. He's got the guy from Fan Expo on the phone. Okay. Now the travel agent's on the phone, and they're all calling me.
You have a whole contingent. You have a whole contingent.
Yeah, it was
people.
madness.
Okay,
people,
right.
So now they all have my number now, and they're all calling me at different times, and they're forwarding me emails with receipts, and I'm giving it all to the Delta people, and Delta keeps replacing the person I'm talking to.
Okay.
Like with someone who seems to be maybe a notch above that person.
This sounds like a clown show, but okay, continue.
Yeah, I wasn't handling it well at this point.
Were you panicking?
So now it's like.
Were you in high anxiety? Were you panicking? Were you getting upset? I've never seen.
I was angry.
Yeah.
I was getting angry because it was like so frustrating to me that no one had an answer. Right. And I'm like, then they're like, oh, well, someone returned your ticket. I'm like, well, that wasn't me.
Wait.
And they're like, the travel agent returned your ticket.
Okay.
I was like, what? So I've got the travel agent on the phone. They're like, no, we didn't. We did not return that ticket. That did not happen. And they're like, yeah, we can see it right here. You did. And so now it's like, I'm looking out the window and there's I can see my plane just like taking off. Like, it's like, then they kept saying, they kept telling me, unless you buy a ticket right now for $800, you're not going to make it out of here. Right. So I knew that was coming.
Sure.
So, I was at the counter for a good 3 hours.
No.
Yeah, it was brutal, dude. That's why I was getting so worked up. So then the travel agent was on the phone with me while they were doing some Delta stuff. And the travel agent was like, this happened once before, because this travel agent books all the travel for Fan Expo.
Okay.
And she's like, we had a guest of the show, another artist, who used a voucher to go on a trip of their own. They had their own little voucher, and it made the system go haywire, and they lost their ticket. I was like,
Is that what you did?
Actually, wait a minute. I was like, I used a voucher to go to Miami a couple weeks ago.
Okay.
And she's like, oh, well, then that's probably it. So I was like, oh, okay. So it's a Delta error. So I'm like, all right, I'm in the clear here. Like,
yeah.
I know there's another. They had told me at this point I can get on the next flight, which is 8 hours later, mind you. We'll get back to that.
Okay. All right.
So I'm now. Am
I making you relive a really awful thing that just recently happened? You haven't quite ran down from it yet.
What?
I said, am I making you relive something that happened?
Yeah. I'm getting amped up talking about it.
Oh, it sounds like it. All right. We don't have to talk about it, man. We can.
No. This is good drama for the show, man. Good drama.
Yeah, no, I get it. I just didn't want you to PTSD all the way through the entire.
No, I'm laughing through it now because the next day, I'll tell you when I get to it. The next day, everything was fine.
All right.
So now I'm confident and I'm becoming arrogant and defiant because Delta fucked up.
Like arrogant.
Because I know Delta fucked up because I've been told Delta fucked up.
I get it.
So they're like, you're not going to get on this flight, sir. We need you to get out of line. Like as my flight's taking off, and I'm like, where am I supposed to go? Like, what do you mean? They're like, well, you have to talk to your travel agent. So at this point, I'm screaming in the airport, and they're telling me to calm down. Yeah, I'm screaming. Oh, I'm definitely screaming. They're telling me to calm down. I'm like, yeah, I better calm down, or they're gonna get
kicked out of here.
Me.
Yeah.
So I walk outside and scream one more time, and then I sit down, and my phone rings after about 10 minutes of me pacing, just steaming. Like, Eric, I haven't felt anger like this. I don't remember last time I felt like this. I'm not proud of myself. I learned a lesson that day.
Yeah.
I learned a very valuable lesson that I need to.
What was the lesson?
The lesson was to calm the fuck down. Like,
all right, calm the fuck down.
Don't go there.
Okay.
You know, so because I was not like nothing I wanted to see happen was going to happen, and my attitude was definitely not going to help it along.
Sure.
So the phone rings and it's the travel agent, and she's like, "Okay, Shawn, I think I was a little short with her on the last call."
Yeah.
She's like, "I know you're upset, so I'm just going to tell you this." And
when I hang up on you.
Right. Yeah, pretty much. I'm not proud of myself.
I'm going to tell you this. I'm going to hang up on you. You have awful temper.
Yeah. Well, Eric, honestly, in all the years you've known me, have you ever seen me lose my temper?
Yeah, no, multiple times. You often beat me with a stick.
Stop that nonsense.
Yeah, oftentimes. Yeah, for sure. I still have the scars to prove it. I've taken it for collision parts.
Okay, rewind. That didn't go so well. All right.
I know. So to be fair, you've always been kind of chill. I've seen you be upset. I've seen you be flummoxed, but never to the point where you're screaming and you're pacing outside.
Right. And I've been anxious. You've seen me anxious and you've seen me stressed, but you've never seen me lose my shit.
And this time you're saying you lost your shit.
Yeah. Okay. I was red. Right. I just saw red. The travel agent
were you red at the situation, or were you red at somebody in specific? Was it the situation?
No, just the situation.
All right.
Everyone I spoke to at Delta was fine. I just kept saying to them, I feel like no one's listening to me because I was trying to tell them the story that the travel agent had told me of what happened. And they're not even listening. And I'm like, why won't anyone listen to me? And I wasn't even yelling at that. I was just calmly like, I just feel like no one's listening to me.
You sound like such a millennial. I feel like no one's listening to me.
Well, they just kept cutting me off. I'm like, I think I have the answer here. But they didn't want me to get it out.
Yeah.
And so that was frustrating. So the travel agent says, Delta told you need to be more vigilant when you're purchasing a flight with a voucher. I'm
what does that mean?
Excuse me? Apparently, according to Delta, I fucked up. As if I was using... Well, what they're saying is, here I am buying my trip to Miami with my flight voucher from a COVID cancellation 2 years ago.
Yep.
And according to Delta, a little window will pop up and tell me, hey, do you want to use your Toronto flight as the balance for the Miami ticket?
Bull crap. Are you serious?
Well, I wouldn't have agreed to that.
Right.
What's ridiculous. Why would anyone say, I've got an existing flight, let me cancel half of it so I can use it here? Like, it was crazy.
Yeah.
So this is when I got short with the travel agent. I was like, I wouldn't have done that. I was like, maybe there was some little checkbox I didn't see, but if that's the case, their system sucks.
Yeah, sure.
But she's like, well, Shawn, they decided to honor your price from the purchase price. So that was $2 something.
Okay. All right.
So you have a ticket on the next flight at 9:30 p.m. Well, it's now like 1 o'clock.
Yeah.
So, and I'm in the Delta International Airport, which is far from my house. I took an Uber down. It's a good $100 Uber ride.
Okay.
And so I'm like, oh, what am I gonna fucking do? And
so
I'm
what
like,
are you gonna do? You're gonna sit there you had to sit there for how long?
Well, those were the choices: sit in the airport with a mask on for 8 hours.
Yeah.
Or go home and wait it out. What?
Yeah. I said that sounds pleasurable.
Yeah, so it was honestly the mask was what broke it for me. I was I could set up my computer and get busy doing some work.
Yeah.
But if I have to have a mask on for 8 hours, then travel for 2 more on a plane with it, then wear it in Canada because they're still under mask mandates. By the time I get to my hotel room, I'll have had this fucking thing on for way too long, and I don't want that.
Yeah. Okay.
Not only are they uncomfortable, they are unnecessary. But never mind that.
Right.
So I decide I'm just going to go home and cool down.
Okay.
Level-headed Shawn was thinking.
Oh, that time.
Yeah, now I'm like...
It was less red.
Yeah. I'm like down near like an orange. Sunburst orange. So I get an Uber.
Yeah.
All my luggage, and I get into the Uber, and I'm just having them take me to my studio because I can go there and take care of some shit.
Sure.
While I'm killing time. I mean, my wife's at work. There's no reason to go home.
Right.
So I get to the studio. I get upstairs. I start starting up my computer, and I'm like, I need to grab I had my wallet in my pocket. I was like, let me put my wallet with my passport so everything's together.
Yeah.
And then it hits me.
What hits you?
I left my laptop bag in the Uber that I just wrote up here. This is a good 20 minutes after the Uber left. Okay. So I open the app. So now I'm back to panic mode. Like, this is the day, man.
You're sunburst orange, man. You're right back to alert red.
Yeah, just right there.
Yeah.
So I open the Uber app. It says, if you left something in your Uber, click here. I click there. It says, if you want to be contacted with your Uber driver by phone, click here, click there. And then it goes, you'll get a call back and Uber will connect you. So my phone rings. It's Uber. It's a voice, like an automated voice saying, press 1 when you're ready. I press 1, it hangs up. I do it again. I press 1, it hangs up. I do this like 10 times. Each time I'm just pressing 1 harder and harder and harder and harder.
Because harder to solve the problem.
It'll solve it. It'll definitely solve it. So I'm flaming red again because I can't get in touch with this guy. Now, let's rewind a little bit. The Uber ride up here was very pleasant. It was a very nice young man. We got to talking, and turns out he's a photographer.
Oh, right on.
And he goes back and forth between Atlanta and New York.
Yeah.
And he makes really good money driving an Uber. Okay. And he said something great. He's like, everyone, there's this concept of the starving artist. And when I heard that, I decided that wasn't me. So this guy was a hustler.
Listen, I'm confirming this is your address.
Yes. Okay, and you're actually reminding me to turn off my damn notifications because I'm terrible. But yes, that's my address, sir.
All right.
Hold on, I'm gonna. Let's do 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. That's great. Okay, no more do not disturb. No more interruptions. Okay. So he just was an interesting guy to talk to. And when I found out he was a photographer, I asked for his Instagram because he said he shot for Rolling Stone. He shoots some hip hop artists who I was a fan of. And, you know, we got to talk about that. So he drops me off. I am following him on Instagram. So after I'm doing the Uber app, I'm like, oh shit, I know who he is. I follow him on Instagram. I opened my Instagram and it says I missed an Instagram call. I still don't understand that feature because it never rings on my end. I just see it there.
Right.
So I'm like, oh fuck, that was probably him. And I opened my DMs and he's like, hey man, I think you left your bag in my car.
Oh, that's cool.
I was like, oh fuck yeah. I was like, yes, yes. I was like, please call me. I gave him my number. He called me immediately. Was like, hey man, I saw your laptop bag. He's like, and I know if I didn't have my laptop, I'd be fucked. Yeah. So, you know, I want to get it back to you. I was like, great.
That's cool.
I was like, he's like, are you still in Alpharetta? I was like, yes, same, right where you dropped me off.
Yeah.
And he's like, all right, I can be there in an hour. Well, I've got plenty of time, and he's that far away. So I'm like, what a nice guy.
Yeah.
So now I can calm down. I start eating some food. I'm like, it's on its way. I'm a little nervous until it's in my hands, but I'm confident it's on its way. He says he'll call me when he's about 10 minutes away, which he does. And then he arrives and there's my bag. And I'm like, dude, my passport was in there, my laptop, my, you know, everything. My wallet was in there. I know I said earlier it wasn't in there, but it was, because when he handed me the bag, I opened it up to give him money. And I pulled my wallet out. He goes, oh shit, your wallet was in there? I was like, yeah. And I just gave him $100. Yeah. Just like, you saved my ass.
Right.
So now I just go up to the studio and I just calm down, do a few things, finish my food, relax for a tiny bit. And then I grab another Uber down to the airport, another $100. So now I'm at $300 in Uber.
I was going to say, you're just bleeding money right now.
Yeah.
And you haven't even left the country yet.
No, and I have to pay for the air ticket because the money, the balance from Miami ticket that I thought I was putting on a card came from the flight that they purchased for me to Toronto. So it's like the flight they purchased is gone, but I spent that money according to Delta. So now it's my responsibility. So now I'm going to this show $500 in the red.
In the hole. Yeah. Okay.
Which is not good for me right now. So I catch my Uber down there and, you know, I'm just surrendering to the whole thing. I'm like, you know what? The universe will bring this money back to me. It's fine. Right. It's fine. I'm just, now I have my test. I have everything. I'm good. I'm keeping my bag like this so I don't leave it in the Uber. And I get down there. I'm in line. I just see how crazy people are. Like, the line is moving so slow. Okay. And I'm just watching all these people, and I'm like, I've had a hell day. Yeah. I get to talking to this girl next to me. She's going to Italy, so we have a nice little conversation about Italy.
Nice.
Yeah, so I get up, I get through like that, I get through security like that, I get to my gate, I'm early, I stopped, I got some snacks because I'm just going to have an edible and get a drink on the plane. Jason's already told me he's going to have an edible waiting for me when I check into the hotel. There's an envelope with my badge and my edible. I was like, great, I'm going to be a little late to the show. Let me sleep in because I'm not going to get in till 12:30. You know, by the time I get to my room and get to bed, I've had a day.
Right.
So I get to my gate and then they're like, hey, your flight's delayed. And you're waiting and then it's delayed again. And now it's time to move gates. No, it's fine. It's funny now. And then I had to move gates to the total other side of the terminal.
Oh, boy.
So the 9:30 flight finally takes off at 10:45. And that means we're getting into Toronto about 12:45.
Okay.
The convention people are awesome. They're like, there will be a driver there waiting for you, holding up a little sign with your name on it. They'll get you to the hotel. You're all squared away. I was like, all right, great. Thank you. You guys are awesome. So I land on time. I get there. It's just going to be late. I finally, when I got on the plane and I ordered a bourbon, I said, you know what? Give me two. And I wasn't going to drink two on the plane.
Okay.
I wanted one to have in my room just to help me wind down after all this so I could go to bed quickly.
Makes total sense.
So she's ringing me up. She goes, you know what? I'm only going to charge you for one because the flight was delayed. I was like, hey, all right. The universe is coming back to me now. So she hooked me up with one. So I everything's fine. I land fine. I get through customs fine. It was the best customs transaction ever because I get up there and they're like, why are you here? I'm like, I'm a guest at Comic-Con. And he's like, no way. I was like, whoa, okay. He's totally nerding out. He's into it. He's like, what's he's like looking at my name and he's Googling me. He's like, you worked at Deadpool. Like, this is in customs. So,
that's nice.
Yeah, that was cool. I was like, oh, so I was like, I'm okay to go through. He's like, yeah, go ahead. I was like, all right. So went through. The driver was waiting there. Super nice. Had a nice, it was a good 20-minute drive to the hotel, but pleasant. Get to my room. Finally, I'm getting into bed at 2:30. When I checked in, the envelope was there with my edible. Jay hooked me up. So I pop my edible. I take a quick rinse-off shower. It's a beautiful hotel with a great shower. I'll dream of this shower. and I get into bed. I pour my bourbon and I'm drinking it. I'm like, it's over. Tomorrow's a new day.
Right.
And I go to bed and I'm thinking I'm going to sleep in pretty late. I had already surrendered the idea that I wasn't going to get my workout in, which I really wanted to do. But I was like, just let that go.
Right.
So I did. So I don't sleep well in hotels. So I got up. I think I probably woke up around 7:30, 8 o'clock, which is my normal wake up time. So I slept maybe about 5 hours.
Okay.
Which isn't terrible. It's not terrible.
Well, especially all things considered, yeah.
Yeah, I was like, I'll just get through the day. I'm not going to go out tonight like I would normally do. I was like, I'm just going to get dinner with Jay and Dave and go to bed. Right. And Jason's tired too, so I was like, all right, this will be fine. So I get up. This is the new thing, Eric. This was a lifesaver. Now, I don't want to do this at all shows, but at some shows, I just said, you know what, Shawn? Breakfast delivered to the room. Because I knew if I went downstairs, like Jason and Dave were going down there, and they were like $30 buffet, and they're like, it's okay, and you could order off the menu too. But I was like, for $20, I could have some steel cut oats with fresh berries and a little pot of coffee in my room while I get ready.
Sure.
Fucking worth it.
Okay, wait.
I did it every morning.
I'm a little confused. Have you never had breakfast at your room before?
Maybe once or twice in my life.
Right. Okay. I do it often, so it's not a foreign concept to me.
All right. Well,
again, in contrast to you, I'm more of a hermit. So interactions with people that early in the frickin' morning is off the table for me.
But that's what I realized. It was really healthy for me to just be alone in that and shower and get myself ready for the con and even I did it every morning. I was like, this is great. I don't have to go downstairs and fight the crowds. Yeah. It's not like in Seattle we go out for a really delicious breakfast.
Yeah, I hate it every single time that you invite me to. I hate it. I can't. I'm not into it. But continue. Sorry.
But if it was just me, you, and Mateo, would you be into it?
I'd hate it even more.
No, seriously. Anyways, that's a breakfast I wouldn't want to miss because I love the location. I love the walk over there. I love the food.
Sure.
And
the
it's usually
not bad.
The
company's not bad.
No, I was going to say I'm usually surrounded by people I really like, and we have good talks.
Okay.
So. But I'm in Toronto, and it seems like there's nothing right around the hotel. The con is in like a part of Toronto that is like all high rises and not a lot of food outside
which one is it Fan Expo?
It's Fan Expo, but it's their smaller Toronto show. Okay. It wasn't a small show, but they're
it wasn't the Fan Expo.
Not the Fan Expo. Okay. It was called Toronto Comic-Con.
All right.
So it's not like there was great breakfast surrounding us. Anyways, So I get down to the show about an hour late, but I'm in a really good mood. I've let it all go. The room was really nice. I was excited to be at the show. I had a great week lined up. I mean, I had the con. I had 2 panels I was going to be on. One was an ink pulp instruction panel with Raid Studio, and one was cool. Like that was very cool. And the other was I forgot what they called it, like a drawing duel with like Ramon and Scott Hepburn, who are guys I like.
Yeah.
And but that turned into a big ink pulp instruction ad because I ended up like giving drawing lessons. Like some kid was asking, "How do you draw eyes?" So I got up there and was giving a little lesson. So it was great. I was like, I got these 2 panels lined up. I had a solo gallery show at Raid open up on Saturday night.
That's right.
And then I was sticking around Toronto for 5 days beyond that to shoot 2 episodes of ink pulp instruction with Ramon at the Raid studio. So I knew I had a good week ahead of me, so I was just going to wake up and let go of everything. And when all that was going down at the airport, I remember thinking, do I just surrender this trip at this point? And I was like, no, I have
not
to go. Yeah, because then I wouldn't get my episodes in. Then my gallery, I wouldn't be able to see this gallery show that I really wanted to see.
Right.
So I'm glad I went. So I was in good moods. I got down the show, and it was great. I mean, it was chill. It was very packed, which was great to see.
Yes.
There's a mask mandate in effect still, which was ending Monday, so it's Friday. So I'm taking my mask off at my table. I'm just deciding, I'm either always having a drink or I got to the point where I was doing a commission. I was like, I'm not going to draw with this on. I'm just not. And I didn't.
Yeah.
And, but it was chill. They had a good green room. They had lunches for us every day.
So everything was on the upswing after that one super.
Yeah. And this collector of Jay, like Jay knows all these big collectors in original art. He came to the show just for one day and went through Dave's portfolio and got a bunch of shit, and went through mine and got a bunch of shit.
Yo, that's
so I did
great.
Well that day. Like I made that money that I lost back and then some.
Okay. Not only did you break even, but you were ahead.
I was ahead by a good bit too. So
good. That's all encouraging, man.
Right. So and I did. So the weekend went on, and I continued to sell stuff here and there, and by the end of the weekend I did a decent show.
There you go. This all turned out I thought this was gonna, I knew that it was gonna turn out okay, or else I would have heard about it ahead of time, but certainly that did start off well, but here you are.
Yeah, no, it was a great weekend, and then a great week afterwards. I mean, the gallery show was really, really fun and surreal and wild, and there
you go, dude. Well,
shooting
welcome back.
Thank you.
Congratulations. You made it through wiser, stronger, mentally, physically. And now here you are, right? That's awesome.
Yeah, and I'm here.
Yeah. All right. So was that the first show right out the block for you as far as 2022? Was that the first one you did, or there was something earlier this year, no?
I did that one-day show in Miami with the Cal. That was the ticket that...
Oh, right. That screwed it all up. See, that's why you can't go that's why you can't trust the Cal.
That's all his fault.
Never go to Miami shows with the Cal.
I love going to Miami though, and that was a good show too, and that was a fun trip too.
Okay, all right. So we have topics. I'm glad that we went through this. I'm glad that you went into Sean Crystal's story time, because in the end there was a happy ending.
Yes,
that was
amazing. And it happened so that I could learn.
Yes.
To control myself a little better.
Is that what is that the end lesson that you walked away with? Me, it's if I were you, I'd be like, don't press the button on the frickin' app.
But I didn't, honestly, Eric. I didn't. I mean, I know myself. I know I was probably a little distracted when I was buying it, and It's possible I missed something small.
Yeah.
But I didn't click any. Yes, please use my Toronto ticket.
Yeah, as a what do you call it? As a feature, that's kind of stupid anyway. So
that was my point. Just as a feature, that's really ridiculous. Yeah. And the travel agent said to me, and this kind of pissed me off. Wait, what did she say? She goes, I just recommend you always call when you want to use a voucher. Mind you, the first thing I did was tried to call to use my voucher. The waiting time was 3 hours.
Right.
So I was like,
general,
and I had just all day long in the at the Delta desk, they were calling the Delta people. Yeah. They couldn't even get through.
Right. They didn't even have the secret code to get through the hotline. No, I get it. I was calling Delta the other day, about 3 weeks back, because I'm trying to set up, I'm trying to use these vouchers that got put in the back burner because of all the travel restrictions and obviously the pandemic. So I'm trying to claim that ticket. And boy, oh boy, they tell you up front with the automated system, the wait is going to be around X amount of hours out. And you're like, this is
right.
Stupid,
Right. So, when she said that to me, I was like, I did that. I'm not going to wait 3 hours. So I still have some vouchers left, and now I'm scared to use them.
Nah, just as long as you don't press that stupid button that you pressed the first
time. I'm going to look for it next time I use a voucher. I'm going to look for it because I'm going to use one of the vouchers for Orlando. Now, if I purchase it before next week, because next week I'm going to Boston.
Yeah.
If I purchase it before that, it could throw my Boston flight into chaos.
Are all your tickets going through Delta?
Yeah, because I live in Atlanta.
Makes it
it's a Delta hub, and it's honestly like smarter for me to just always fly Delta. I have a Delta card, so I get free luggage, I get miles, and it's the easiest one. It's the easiest airplane to get here.
In concept, until they hold you up, did you press a stupid button and they gave your ticket away?
Yeah, and in all fairness, I've been very happy with Delta for a very long time, but this was just like it was just the day. It was my day. Like that's it. We're all given these days. Where shit's just going to go bad, and it's going to teach you how to deal with things a little better.
It's nice to, not nice, but it's fascinating to think that you had unleashed on somebody. I've never seen that before.
I didn't unleash on someone. I was just screaming obscenities away from someone. It wasn't like "fuck you, you asshole." It was just "fuck" while my back is to them.
Sure.
I'm
sure that they felt the same. That you were not screaming at them.
Yeah.
You're screaming around them. You're screaming the F word, and in proximity of them. Anyway, welcome home.
Thank you. What do you need my address for? I keep seeing like the texting thing.
No, I needed your address because I'm sending you the camera, the lens, and the.
Eric, this was a joke we were having.
Oh no, it's real to me. See, this is what happens. You're joking, and I'm like,
I didn't think you were buying
and then I sent it. You're screaming at the what do you call it, the TSA/Delta people. You think that it's not at them, but they genuinely believe you're upset. So you gotta watch. All right,
we'll talk about this later. This is a conversation for later. I do have a topic because the whole we're 40 minutes into our hour-long show
37 minutes in. We're doing the podcast now. I'm sure you'll be able to edit this later, but I think you should leave it in because
I'm not editing this. This is it, man. I think honestly, it's been pretty entertaining. So I think it's definitely something to keep. All right, I have to. Okay, so the topic I wanted to talk about, me and you started texting about a little bit.
All right, hold on. Before I go, I want to be able to keep track of time because I know this is evening time for you. You're 2 hours into the future ahead of me. When do you need to evacuate there? So at least I know I'll keep I'll keep the time in the corner here and just be keenly aware to say, all right, I think we.
Well, I thought you couldn't go past an hour.
Yeah, no, I got a little bit of time. I gave I gave the heads up to the missus and say, hey, this may run a little bit longer, because in about 1 minute, I may not, I would later have to be like, hey, Shawn, I need to go. But we got started late. I got to go ahead from the wife, so we could probably go another 30 minutes, 30 plus.
Okay, instead of 20, you mean? Yeah. Okay, so an extra hour and 10. All right, cool. That's fine. That's totally fine.
We didn't officially get started until later, right? There's a lot of coordination stuff happening. Anyway, topic. What's the topic?
Yeah, topic is this. We were texting, and you said something that really I thought would be a good discussion. You said trying to grow a passion into a business is almost 100% time consuming.
Yeah.
Which is true, but I wanted to talk about growing a passion into a business because I hadn't thought about it in those terms, what we're doing. But it's exactly what we're doing.
It sounded profound at the time. I don't know if I can expand on it. Which part of it do you want to talk about?
Well, I guess what it's like. What does that mean and what it's like? I feel like with INKPULP Instruction, I attract a lot of people to my stuff, like my podcast, who want to learn things.
Yeah.
So, part of being an artist is, I guess, I always had this freelancer mentality where it was like I was a worker. You hire me for a job, you pay me for a job. And then that changed, and I was like, I want to be in control of my art and my career more. So, which ultimately, stumbling and fumbling around for a while, I realized, oh, wait a minute, this is like what an entrepreneur does. It's starting a business.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's when I started thinking of it like a business and treating it like a business. And I don't think I'm great at it, but I am learning.
Yeah, I don't know if too many artists are great at it, and of the artists that I know who are good at it, they're not very good artists. That
was one of the questions I had.
So I think one of the key things, and we can go down the list, but and by the way, that's not a slight on somebody who doesn't, as far as their craft are concerned, isn't necessarily at the top of their game or the best, the most regarded. It simply says they know how to leverage the opportunity that they have. And they know how to, they know how to turn that, whatever skill that's at their disposal, and know how to leverage that, right? And turn that into a business. Anyway, even before any and all of that, right? So, turning your passion, into a business, I think, and the reason why I say that most people who are very good at the business side of their passion aren't necessarily 100% good at, especially when it comes to art, it's because, at least for the 40 plus some odd years that I've been alive, everything has been about the craft, right? Exploring it, finding where my weaknesses are, exploring that, realizing that exposes even more weaknesses, and so on and so forth, right? And so that doesn't really leave much room to understanding the business side of things, right? You're almost reactionary when it comes to business. Number one, because you get into the comic book industry. When you get into the comic book industry, things have been predetermined for you in as far as your page rate, right? Nobody ever tells you, hey, at X amount of months, X amount of pages, X amount of projects, you should go renegotiate for that. No, you just go oh yeah, I'll just, they'll give me what they give me and blah, 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 but not realizing, hey, you're a proven commodity at some point, right? You turn around, not necessarily not only exclusively because of the book sales, but also because you're a hard worker, you turn things around very quickly, you're reliable, blah, blah, blah. All of those things are points of negotiation. Nobody ever talks to you about that, right?
No.
So to my point, everything is predetermined for you, and you never really pick up any sort of usable, feasible business acumen, right? You just go and because the nature of mainstream comic books is, I don't know how long I'm going to be on this project, so you're constantly on the grind of where's my next project going to come from? So your efforts, if it is business related, primarily has to do with some sense of self-preservation, survival, and financial feasibility, right? It never goes into, wait a second, what am I as an artist? How is this something that I can stretch into, not just me standing there with hat in my hand, hoping somebody pays attention and gives me money, right? And then as I dance around like a monkey, it's more how do I become more proactive in this space? Knowing what assets I have, knowing what I bring to the table. Nobody teaches that to you. You actually have to make an active effort into saying okay, here's what I can do, right? Here's how I make it. Here's, I think, are really good ideas of how to make this thing that I have evergreen, right? As opposed to just chaining yourself to the desk the entire time, right? Nobody, you have to go learn that on your own. And some people, and I think, in part, when people ask me, hey, well, how come not, how come more of your mainstream comic book friends don't take the dip into doing creator-owned stuff. Going into crowdfunding, going into creator-owned books and self-publishing and yada yada. And like, I don't think they're doing it because they're unaware. I think they're doing it because they are aware. They do a little bit more research and they realize, whoa, this isn't for me. This is too much work. I don't have soft skill to be able to handle this. I don't have the business acumen to be able to handle this correctly. It's too much. It's too much work, right? So I'd rather just exist in the system that has been set up for me, because it's the thing that number one, I'm comfortable with, and it's because it's quote unquote easier. So when you're passionate about something, right? To go back to the original question, or the original sort of thesis and premise, like. And you decide, okay, enough of that. Enough of the standing there, hat in hand, asking for what's next. You now have to start thinking about things. For me, I almost had to start thinking about like, what am I worth, and how can I then take that worth and say, okay, now I'm investing in myself, as opposed to, and that's that people really get lost in that. They think that by working in the mainstream comic book industry, that's an investment in you, and in a way it is, because obviously they're paying you for your time and effort, right? So in the most common sort of like cosmetic sense, yeah, it's an investment in you because you get money out of it. I draw this, they give me money, I go spend the money on the things that I need, right, or the things that I want. But really, once you cross a particular threshold, as you and I have, you start thinking about like, actually, that's not really an investment in me. That's like, I'm investing in propping up somebody else's products. Right. But that's not my product. That doesn't belong to me at the end of the day. And you and I see this a lot when, and it's heartbreaking whenever we go to a convention and there's somebody who's like a 50, 60 year veteran in the comic book industry, and nobody's taking care of them, right? Like they have to still do the same exact thing that we are currently doing. We go in there, smiles across our faces because we haven't seen our friends. But when I see that, right, and I think somewhere my radar was up for it, and I was actually like understanding the frequency that thing was broadcasting. I took a look at that and I was like, I don't want to be that guy.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And it's not to say that they didn't invest themselves. It is to say that they didn't invest in themselves enough that they're still doing that show, and they've somehow found the thing that doesn't have to have that show in place, right?
Right.
And I think that's what I mean when I say like you're taking this passion, this hobby, and you're turning it into a business. That takes so much work, right? Because now you have to think like a businessman as opposed to an artist. You take however many skill points away from the what do you call it, the craft / learning tree, like the application tree, and now you go like, okay, I don't know anything about the businessification of my craft. What does that look like, and the more you learn about that, the sooner you learn about that, the more ahead that you'll be, at least in contrast to a lot of these comic book artists. They're having to deal with it much later. Dealing with the reality much later.
Yeah. So your business is your self-publishing. Is that what you're referring to when you talk about your business?
Yeah. Whenever I'm publishing, so in this case, it just happens to be a comic book. But I'm not saying I'm exclusively going to be a comic book publisher. I can be whatever the heck I want.
Right.
In this exercise, I just happen to be publishing comics. But I want to be able to understand how to make my body of work, and if there's a brand to be associated with that, how to make that evergreen, right? In your case, it's like, I'm going to make these instructional videos. I don't have to do this. It doesn't have to be instructional videos one person at a time, right? It can exist as sort of a la carte menu. People who want to learn about X, Y, and Z, they can pick that out, and those videos exist, right? That's what I mean by evergreen.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm trying to do it not just with instruction, but with my art. I want to do my own comic. I'm working on gallery stuff. I'm doing murals. It's like it's all one business, but figuring out how to make it work in all these areas.
Yeah, but it's yours, right?
That's it's totally mine.
There are times when I see people getting a lot of love for And again, I'm not sort of like diminishing that. If that's the passion that they want, is to be able to draw from mainstream, that's totally cool by me. I mean, that's the thing that you want to do. Totally cool, right? But I often think to myself, is the value or the perceived value of who you are as an illustrator or an artist exist because you are really, really good at your craft, right? Or is it because you're really good at your craft and you're drawing the thing for somebody else? And
right.
I wasn't comfortable staying in the space where I didn't have a clear delineation of what that is, right? Like,
I agree.
I didn't bring, more to the table than just me. Like the sort of top of the mountain for me when it comes to who I hold in high regard are people like, like Mobius, right? I would love to, or like Claire Wendling, right? I would love to be an entity in and of myself in which my peers have a high level of regard and respect for my body of work, right? And so when I come onto a project, that adds a premiumness to the project as opposed to the other way around, right? Like I bring something to Batman, not that Batman brings something to me.
Right. Well, I think we grew up in an era of comics where that's how it was. I mean,
Sure.
You got Sienkiewicz working on Moon Knight. It's Sienkiewicz that you're picking up Moon Knight because Sienkiewicz drew it, but it's changed, I think.
Yes. Yeah.
Now you're picking up Batman, and it's Greg Capullo drawing it.
Yeah. But I think things have changed in general now. I was just talking to somebody online about the opportunities that are accessible to us now as craftsmen, as businessmen, that were not at all approachable back in the day. And so
like what?
Somebody like for instance, self-publishing now and getting the awareness out to people about you have a self-publishing effort, right? Yes, and here's how all of these different avenues, all of these little levers that I can pull on to have people understand. Oh, Canete has a book out, right? That was not approachable. That didn't exist a decade ago, right?
No,
you'd still have to go through a standard sort of distribution avenue like Diamond, like brick and mortar places, like blah. Like the fact that you and I can get on YouTube tomorrow and just talk projects and have 2 or 3 people interested in that and invest in us. That's not, without having to go to a show, having to go to a convention, reach out to potential clients, reach out to potential customers and be like, hey, this is happening, So, those are the things that I know for sure. I did not have access to back in the day, and I have access to now. So I think in a way, people have it much easier. It's a lot harder because it's not exclusively available to just you and me. It's available to everyone. So there's a lot of signal to noise out there.
Absolutely. I mean, I saw when COVID hit and like my freelance was drying up, and I was really trying to figure out what I can do to survive. I was like, oh, wait a minute, like I can do anything. Like, I can make a school and put it online. I can kickstart a comic book. I can do all these things now that were never an option.
Yeah, exactly.
10 years ago. Absolutely.
No, exactly. Yeah. And I think it's one of the
I'm seeing more and more artists explore it. I mean, like spending a week with Ramon, like Raid is like Ramon's got all this shit going on at Raid that's impressive and amazing. They're a publisher now. They're a self-publisher. When I was there, someone in the studio was a novelist, and like a shipment of crates came. They kickstarted a novel and published hardcover editions, softcover editions.
Yeah, and you get to a point in your career, and even though the opportunity is accessible to everyone, it might not necessarily mean immediate success, right? I see a lot of crowdfunding efforts that don't necessarily meet goals, or they're not. They're pretty, by way of the money that they've made, it's pretty conservative. You know what I mean? And, but that's okay, right? The fact that you have the same level of access as I do had never existed before. You know, like the considerations that somebody would give me to get a table at a Comic-Con wasn't available to a lot of people who didn't have that name built in. But now you can walk into any crowdfunded space and still have as much chance of being successful as I do, in as far as like your I mean, you know, be realistic about what your goals are. But the fact that you have that tool available to you, that's never happened before. You know, that's
absolutely
cool. That's
absolutely
cool to me. So yeah, so a few things that I'd come to learn when it's running a business, right? Don't treat, you know, I remember I knew what my shortcomings were in regards to not being up to speed to my business acumen. Everything was sort of handed to me on a silver platter when it comes to like, hey, what my rights are, what my protections are as an illustrator, as a creator. You know, everything was sort of like standardized. Now that I'm doing it on my own, I'm like, hey, who's going to draw these contracts? You know,
right?
Hey, where are my rights as far as my trademarks are concerned and my characters are concerned? Who's copywriting it and all of that? So the first thing I did was reach out to a lawyer and I said, hey, an IP lawyer, and I said, does this work? You know, or like, can you do this work for me, right? And yeah, sure, it costs a fee, and this is one of those barrier to entries that might not be accessible to everybody, but it only made it that much more clear to me how important to shore this part up, because who knows, right? Like, I'd rather go through the exercise of doing this, paying the kind of money that it takes in order to have these protections in place so I can draw and create comfortably without having to think about like, oh, I wonder if this is going to be, you know, I might get myself into some sticky situation later, right?
Right.
So that was one of the things, you know.
Well, that was smart of you. I didn't even think about that. You got me thinking now.
Oh, it's important. It's important. You know, and building relationships with printing houses, right? It's the sort of kind of these handshake things that happen in rooms that not necessarily reflect immediately on paper and on offer sheets. You make these handshake deals and you build those relationships, and next thing you know, you hope that it's long term. You hope that this thing can continue in it, so that the bottom line of what cost per unit is for these books. You know, those things all this is all a giant learning process for me.
Yeah,
This is what the general public has access to, but because you and I had a chance to talk and we understand each other's character, you're cutting me a deal because of X, Y, and Z, just as long as I promise you my business for the long term, blah, blah, blah. You know, it's like, it's really fascinating stuff that I was never privy to before, because all I did was like, I turned in my pages, I scanned them, I drew my pages, I scanned them, I turned them into you, and 3 months later, I'm having to promote it, right? So this is all awesome for me.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going through a lot of that. I feel like I've got some learning to do, but with instruction, I'm going like, it's like, all right, let's do this. And how am I going to get more people aware of it? Like it's constantly thinking. That's
actually a perfect thing that you just said right now, which is, you know, when you're working for a pre-existing, well-regarded, well-known IP, you just draw it, you know, and you reap the benefits of the history of the IP. You sit at a show behind a table somewhere. You sit at the show behind somebody else's table. Let's say you're a booth for a publisher, and you're getting the notoriety that way. You're getting people to pay attention to you that way. But once you start doing it on your own, right, you now have to start thinking 3 steps ahead all the time. Yeah, sure. It's you know, you compartmentalize these victories, right? These sort of like metrics of success, and you're like, okay, great. I managed to put together. In your case, is the instructional video. In my case, is these publishing efforts, right? But then you go like, is that, you know, am I just stopping at the water's edge, or do I start thinking, okay, now I need people to know that this thing exists, right? And what does that take? You know, so that's another sort of wrinkle in your brain to be like, oh, now I want to do some sort of like awareness campaign that this thing is out there, right? Who do I need to talk to? Who are the professionals that do this really, really well? Who are the people who are, you know, who have bigger sort of, satellite dishes than I do when it comes to like broadcasting that this thing exists? And, you know, am I talking to their audience? You know, is this a good fit for their audience? Yada, yada, yada. You know, so it's like all of these it would be, all of these things that I've never had to deal with before, and it would be easy enough that it had a dollar amount associated with it. I'd pay money and people know about it. But now in this day and age, especially when things are a little bit more personal, especially when a term that is become so much, it has become like in bold, in huge font to me, which is authenticity, right? Like, you have to find a way to communicate that to people and be true to it and be authentic to an audience, because that holds a lot of value. That holds a lot of trust equity with people when they're like, oh, he's not effing around. He really does love and believe in this thing. So yeah, I'd absolutely want to support him. I'd absolutely want to support that.
Sure. And that right there is awesome. Like, making those connections with people, and you see their loyalty and their interest and everything in you. And I mean, that, like you were talking earlier about the Kickstarter stuff and how anyone can do it, and it might not go well. I think if any of this was easy, it just wouldn't work. Yeah, I mean, everyone would just do it, and then you'd be flooded.
Yeah. So, and what's great is that it's not easy. So it immediately means that only people who are really down to do it are going to do it, right? So, it's, again, people self-select out because it's not easy, and that's great, because it's not made for anybody. It's made for everybody to do, right? As far as the actual exercise and practice of doing it. But it's not everybody is cut out for it. So the opportunity is there. People just don't have tenacity or the grit to go through it themselves.
Right.
And that's fine. That's okay.
Sure, of course.
In a way, it's like more for me, right?
Right. Let me ask you. So, I mean, we're both talking very calmly about this now, but like you're saying, not everyone's cut out for it. But do you have your moments of doubt? Did you have your moments of like emotion, where like this is like feeling overwhelming, or doubt, is this going to work, or anything like that? Or were you just very cool the whole way through?
No, that first campaign, I really wanted it to be, quote unquote successful, not necessarily knowing what success meant, right? And so everything that it could mean got compounded, right? So, it's got to make X amount of dollars. It's got to make it's got to, get this many customers. It's got to, whatever. It's got to be received well by people who read it. It's got to ship onto, like, everything became, quote unquote, the thing that I needed for success, right? Everything got sort of, again, mixed into a giant bowl. For it to be successful, it must be all these things all at the same time. And that wasn't very healthy, right? So
how did you rectify that?
I just had to make the category smaller, right? And ultimately, I had to find the version of success that I was comfortable with, right? So I started asking, like, was it monetary? And I was like, not really. That'd be great if it was, because obviously money, right? Like, things cost money. I would have it. I could afford to do those things, but not really. I had to really think about, at least with Arc Athena, I had to think about why I was doing it in the first place, and it wasn't for money. It would, again, those are just like really, really nice, icing, right? That's just really nice extra, really nice whatever. But I wasn't doing Arc Athena because I wanted to make a gazillion dollars out of it. I was making Arc Athena because I got sick of hearing myself talk about all of these things that were not working for me as a past comic book reader / past creator, in that space. I was really annoyed that I wasn't getting a chance to draw the kinds of things that really excited me about the comic book industry in the first place. The things that drew me into the industry, pardon the pun, but like the things that drew me into the industry were no longer the kinds of things that people were publishing. And I had come to realize, wait a second, there's still an audience for the kinds of stuff that I was super into, but it wasn't being fulfilled. It wasn't being serviced. You couple that with, like, after coming back, I always say this, I say this tongue-in-cheekly, that I got plucked off the planet, and when I came back, I started reading comics. I was like, how is this entertaining? You know, and that's maybe it's unfair and overly critical, but certainly to me, I was like, I didn't find entertainment value in this at all. So it must be a completely different audience that they're going for.
Right.
It's not actually an audience; it's just a potential audience. It's not as if somebody was enjoying the stuff; it was just going for an audience that they thought that they would be able to cater to, but it wasn't really fulfilled because the numbers prove that out. You know,
right?
The sales numbers really prove that out. So I thought, okay, well, you know what? Eric, shut up. You actually have you're actually in a very advantageous position of being able to do something about this, not just talk about, oh, this sucks, that sucks, that sucks. 'Cause that only takes you so far. It gets really annoying after a while. I actually can do something about it. And more importantly, I can proof out all my own BS, you know? Imagine if like, you know, the typical, you know, the typical guy who's sitting there watching Monday Night Football talking about, oh, he should have caught that, or oh, he should have made that pass. Oh, yeah. You now get an opportunity to go play and see whether or not you're just nothing but talk. I took that on, you know, to be like, okay, I just need to go do this because I actually have the opportunity to do it, right?
Right.
And so after doing that, right, after referring back to that, I realized, oh yeah, no, that's my goal, is to go proof that out. And after that, everything got so quiet.
Oh, that's great.
Everything just went away. Like, yeah, sure, there are times when somebody will bring up things like, hey, the second campaign, historically, you know, they should have done better than the first, right? And I go, yeah, from a business standpoint, that's the way things should be working. And yeah, sure, there's things there that I could probably optimize, yada, yada, yada. But at the end of the day, I don't let it bother me as much as it would have if I didn't recalibrate my perspective, which is I want to proof this out, and this isn't just one book. The way that I proof this out is I take it all the way to the end. 6 books printed out in the wild. People are reading it, giving me feedback. I'm able to accommodate some things that might not be ideal, but the script is written. There's a couple of things that I can tweak here and there. But this ends for me. I can ends by way of like I can exhale and look back and really do a post-mortem whether or not something is successful once the 6th issue is done, right? Otherwise, I'm not going to focus on the other stuff, right?
Right. Do you think it's a bad idea? Like you're talking about, like, what is the goal of this? Is it a bad idea to have something where the goal of it is to make money?
I can't make that decision for everybody. For me,
right? I'm just asking your opinion on that.
For me, it's not, right? Like, I don't know if it's a bad idea, but it's so short-lived, right? Like, it has, I don't know. I've never been. I guess I'm in that position in life now where the monetary gain of it isn't necessary. Like, again, I'm in a very privileged position where the monetary gain of something isn't as motivating as it is for the creative side.
Are you saying you're in a privileged position because you have a job that's making you money already?
Yeah, okay. I'm doing okay, and in such a way that, you know, it allows me the freedom to make this more of a creative endeavor. I'd be stupid in talking about like a business acumen to just be like completely in the red the entire time, right? But to have that the primary motivating factor, I'm trying not to make it that. What I can do is learn a lot from the business side of it. What's my takeaway? You know, like, I could have negotiated better for a price per book. You know, I should have turned this in at a certain time because now I'm not having to pay for a fee to rush this thing to get printed. Oh man, I should have done this kind of conversation with these people. You know, I should be more deliberate about when I announce the book is going to be coming out, because the first 48 hours of a book being live is really super critical in its success. Is that true? And, you know, all of those things, those are all businessy type stuff. You know, those are not necessarily all that creative, but yeah, I can get better at doing any and all of those for sure.
Awesome. All right. So we're like at an hour 10 almost.
Yeah.
So next time we can talk something creative, but that was awesome. That was a lot of good information.
Absolutely, man.
All right.
And also, we'll not go into the dramatics of your turn of luck. But like I said,
hey! I think we might be onto something. I'm just saying there might be like a segment where they want to hear us ramble about some shit.
The trials and tribulations of Shawn Crystal's international travel. I'm into it. All right, we'll end it here, right?
All right,
I'm gonna press this end broadcast button, and then I'll see if it clears and save it on my desktop and send it off to you. All right, buddy. We're going to keep doing this every Thursday. I'm excited for it. It gives us a chance. Too. Personally, just from my perspective, it's completely selfish. It gives me a chance to catch up with you. But also, these topics are freaking fascinating. So, and by the way, next time, don't let me do all the talking.
Hey, I feel like my job is to be the interviewer, and you'll be the interviewee.
I don't think that should be true all the time.
No, it won't be. It won't. But look, I dominated the first half of the show with my fucking travel talk.
I dig it. I'm into it. Let's do more of that. All right. We'll talk to you later. All right,
bye. This is the INKPULP Podcast. This is the INKPULP Podcast. Comics, hip hop, life.